Hello, my name is Rhonda Hayes, and I'm an educational consultant in Georgia. I've had more years of experience than I'd like to admit, from being a classroom teacher to being a reading recovery teacher to being a literacy coach. I've trained literacy coaches. I was a curriculum director, and I was even superintendent of schools. Now that I'm retired, being a literacy consultant gives me a chance to give back to the school systems, to teachers, and to children because people invested in me, and now I feel like I need to invest in other people. So today's topic is guided reading, and I'll be focusing on face-to-face instruction. In other videos, I'll make some with suggestions for virtual learning. But today, let's focus on guided reading. So let's get started. Don Holdaway is one of the legends in the field of literacy, and he said that guided reading is a form of group instruction in which we introduce children to the techniques of reading new or unseen material for personal satisfaction and understanding. And I hope that's true. I hope that children love reading and that they gain such satisfaction from the characters they meet and the adventures they can travel on without even having to leave their house. And if you aren't making meaning out of what you're reading, then you're not really reading, right? So let me just explain quickly what guided reading looks like, sounds like, and feels like. So it's a small group of children that you've pulled together that have a similar need in reading. And you're pulling them together because it's a lot more efficient to work with a small group than it is to work one-on-one. Now, we know one-on-one is really great too, though, right? So then after you've formed your group, the teacher has to select a book. And that's very important because you have to select the just right book. You don't want it to be too hard. You don't want it to be too easy. You want it to have just enough work in it for the students. Then they read the book. Now, they're all going to read the book from cover to cover, but they're not going to all read it at the same time because that would be called round robin reading, and that's not what this is. In guided reading, every child reads the whole book. The teacher will introduce the book, and I call it debugging the book. The teacher finds the parts of the book that they think might be tricky for their child, and before they begin reading, they look at whether it's the vocabulary or something related to the text and how it's structured. Then everybody reads the book, the teacher listens in, and then after they're finished, there's a discussion about the book. After the discussion, the teacher will teach something, and then there'll be some word work, and it might end with writing about the book. Not always, but sometimes. Here's a great quote by Maury Clay. She says that young children give overt signals about what they are attending to and what links they're making. Their behaviors provide signals that help teachers decide how best to lift their performance levels. And I don't know about you, but I always wanted to lift the performance levels of my students. The tricky part about this is knowing what the signals are that the children are giving you and being a really close observer of the children so that you can figure that out. And I hope I can help you some with that. So here are the steps to a guided reading group. First, you have to assess your readers. You have to know how to form your groups. Now, there are many kinds of assessments that you could be giving. You might have Rigby books, and you might use those. You might have a Scholastic benchmark assessment system. You might use Reading A to Z, or you might have the Fontes and Pinnell benchmark assessment system. That's the one I'm the most knowledgeable about. Whichever one you use, you assess the students and you find their instructional reading level. And then you study those results. You really analyze them and you look to see how and what the children need. Are they monitoring? Or does that means are they noticing when they make a mistake? Are they using what they know about sounds and letters to take words apart? What's their comprehension like? What's their fluency like? And you use that detailed analysis so that you can put similar needs together, those students who have a similar need, and you'll form your groups. Now, the second step is to choose the books that you will use with the children. I hope that your school has a wonderful book room where you can go in the book room and select books. Now, I will tell you that all guided reading books aren't created equal. They vary from publisher to publisher. And you may like to reference this resource. It's the Literacy Continuum by Fontes and Pinnell. They have a great guided reading section in the back, and it gives you examples of what a typical book at each level looks like, the type of vocabulary, and you can see the font, that kind of thing. There's an actual image of a book, and that I found that to be very helpful. You want to make sure, most importantly, that you select books that will engage your students, that it's on a topic that they'll be interested in. Then once you've selected the book, open it up and look on the inside carefully, analyzing, looking at the vocabulary, the ideas, the themes, the language patterns, and the words that you think they might struggle with. And think about, can they make connections to this book? All right. So there are actually 10 different characteristics of books according to Fontes and Pinnell. Here are the 10. Some of them you may think about when you pick out a book, but some of them you may not. So I think it's real important that you are aware of the characteristics that make a book be the level that it is. And you have to think about, are there one of these that might make a particular book more difficult for my students? Now, you plan your lessons based on a lot of different factors, especially the background of your students. This is the typical plan that I use. You don't have to use this one, but I like this lesson plan format and have used it for many years. I come up with an overarching big idea. I think about the text characteristics, things related to the meaning, the structure, and visual information. I think about what I want to prompt them to do as readers. I pre-plan questions that I'll ask, and then I'll have possibly a teaching point in mind, but I might have a teaching point that just comes up that I notice while they're reading. I always pre-plan my word work, and then I make notes on the students. Now, if you would like a copy of this lesson plan, I'm more than glad to send you one. At the end of this presentation, I'll give you my email. Now, I thought it would be good if I would give you an example of a book introduction, because that's one of the most important things that you do. And this video, I'll focus on guided reading text level C. So when you introduce the text, it's very important that you create one or two sentences that will sum up the text. You want it to be very clear and as concise as possible, because students that are easily distracted need to know the big idea within the first few minutes of the lesson. You want to make sure you tailor the intro to your students. Oftentimes, publishers include a card that might give you an intro. It might tell you the things to say and do. And that's all very helpful to a teacher. Very much time can be saved by looking at those cards. But don't forget, the publisher does not know your students. You do. So then you want to keep in mind that there needs to be work for your students. You have to think, where will the work be for them? And you want to make sure you leave some work for the students. But you want to provide enough support that they can be successful. So you're constantly balancing that support that you want to give them and the work you want them to do. Here's an example for text level C. This book, See Me Play, is from Epic. I chose this book since it was online and available for most teachers to access freely. Here's the overarching intro that I came up with. Today, you're going to read a new book, See Me Play. That's the title. A pack of dogs chase a ball and meet new friends. The pictures will help you know the words. So then I would let them look at the front cover and I would say, as you're reading, look for these animals. And I hope that they're pointing to them and naming them and calling them out. Then I would say, let's look at the first page. Now, see the person? What do you think the person will do with the ball? I pause, and I hope the children are saying, he's going to throw the ball, or she will throw the ball. I'll say, what do you think the dogs will do? Because I want them to begin making predictions. Then I say, the dogs see the ball. I can tell they can see the ball because I'm looking at their eyes in the picture. Do you see the ball? And then I'll say, can you say the word ball? What letter do you expect to see at the beginning of the word ball? Can you find the word ball? And then I would take out a dry erase board and marker and I would write the word ball. And I would say, can you find the word ball on this page? And then I would say, touch it. Put your finger under it. This is the word ball. The word ball is in this story a lot because it's all about the dogs chasing this ball. Get a really good look at it because you'll see it a lot. And then I might say, can you find the word I and touch it? Then I might write it on the board. This is the word I, but it's also the letter I. That should be easy for us to know that word. Can you touch that? Can you find it? Now, there's another word that's important for you to know. It's the word see. Can you touch that word? See. What about the word thee? Thee. Now let's read this sentence together. I see the ball. Now I didn't tell you this earlier, but I'm imagining that this group of students is reading a level C book, and it might be their first level C. So I'm taking plenty of time and I'm going to give them a very rich introduction. Now, they should know a few basic sight words from the work that I've been doing. I'm hoping that they know I and C and V, but I'm just showing you an example of what it might look like. Then I keep going with the intro. So we'll turn and go through all of the pages. Some people call it a picture walk. I don't necessarily call it that because I'm drawing attention to not just the pictures, but other things as well. Then I might say, what do you see in the picture? And I'll wait for them to talk. What do you think will happen? And so the children aren't really reading the book, although somebody might read it. I'm just wanting to make sure that I take it slow and easy into the book. Then I say on the next page, look at the dogs running. It looks like they are going fast. Say the word fast. Fast. What letter would you expect to see at the beginning of the word fast? I hope they're yelling F. Touch the word fast on this page. Then turn the page. Oh no! What's happening to the ball? I hope they're saying it fell in the water. And then I'll say, what will happen to a ball if it gets in the water? And then I hope they say, it gets wet. Say the word wet. What letter would you expect to see at the beginning of the word wet? Or I might say it like this. What letter would you expect to see first in wet? Notice that I'm not asking them to find it and locate it on that page because I want to leave a little work. Now, what's happening now? Oh no, it looks like the bird wants the ball. Say the word wants. Do you think the bird wants the ball? How do you know? And then I think they'll say, he's fine to get it, or his mouth is open. What letter would you see first in want? Put your finger under wants and look at it carefully. Now turn the page. Look at the dogs. Why are they in the hot air balloon? And then after they talk a little bit, I'll say, I want you to know that I'm not going to teach this page because I want to see if they're able to carry the story. All right? Thinking about what makes sense. Turn the page. Oh no! What happens to the ball? They'll say, the bird dropped it in the water. And once again, I'm not going to really teach those words or have them touch anything. I'm just leaving that as work for the children. Wow, look what has the ball now. And I hope that they know it's a whale. If it's not, I'll jump in and I'll say something about that's called a whale. Look what the whale did. Look at the ball. The ball is going. And then I will say, what do you think will happen next? And I'll just wait to see. I want you to be really careful with your language because if you talk too much, you might say something like, the ball is going to the beach, or the ball is flying high in the sky. And if you say things like that, it might become confusing for the children. The dogs are in the car now because another animal has the ball. Who has the ball? And then they'll say, the lion. And then I could say, what letter would be first in the word lion? Can you find the word lion and run your finger under the word? And then I would have them do that. The dogs are in the car and they can't really see what the lion is doing. Can you tell? And then they might not can tell because you can't really see. So I'm going to say, do you see this little word up here by the lion's? It's by the lion's ears right here. It says gulp. Well, that's a sound word. And that means the lion is making the sound. The lion is saying, right there, it says gulp. So I want you to read and find out what happens to the ball. Turn the page. Can you imagine what's going to happen now? So I'm wanting the students to make predictions. And then I'll say, all right, now it's your turn to read the story. Turn back to the beginning and get started. And so I hope that students will just start reading and read from beginning to the end. If they don't, I'll just say, you get started, you get started, you get started. So that leads us to step 4. At step 4, the students read the book from the beginning to the end, and the teacher observes. Now, sometimes students don't start like in a staggered way. And I really like for them to be staggered because I don't want them all to be reading at one time. So I don't want them on the same page because if they do, then they're just echo reading. So if somebody is caught up to someone else, I usually say, stop just a second, or I'll talk to them, ask them a question so that they won't be. Sometimes I might even say, I'm going to tell you when to start reading, and just look at the picture and wait for me to tell you to get started. Each teacher has to work that out to what feels comfortable for them. I explained to the children that I want them to whisper read because for some children it is a little distracting when you first begin. And then I make sure that the children are spread out at the guided reading table. And now that you have COVID, some of you may even have some kind of dividers in between the children. If the children are very distracted, you can always have a child turn their chair around. But honestly, in all my years of experience, I've never had too many children who couldn't eventually get used to the whisper reading. While the students are reading, the teacher leans in and they listen to each child read, and you're making notes of anything that you see. You want it to be very interactive with the students as needed. And so you might notice that a child gets stuck. They're at the point of difficulty. And so you could jump in at that very moment, or you could wait till after that they figured it out and then jump in. You can vary that. If a child makes a mistake and you notice that they didn't notice it, then jump in, because that's going to be a great learning opportunity. And this just takes experience where you're learning more about reading and the process of reading when you decide when to jump in and what to say. Here's some examples that may help you. Okay, so if the child is reading a word incorrectly and the teacher notices it, the teacher might say something like, try that again and think what would make sense. Then the child might reread it again and get the word right. And then the teacher might say something like, it has to make sense and look right too. Okay, another example is if a child gets stuck on a word and the child makes the first letter sound, and the teacher might say, try that again and think about what makes sense. Then the child might reread the sentence and then get the word right because he is thinking about what makes sense. And the teacher might say, did you see the picture too? Another example might be the child reads, the child stops and appeals for help because they're stuck. And the teacher might say, and might give a word, and the teacher might say, would ball make sense? And the child might try it, and the teacher might say, were you right? Was it ball? And the child might say, yes. And then the teacher might say, yes, you made it make sense and look right too. So you're helping the child learn how to use multiple sources of information. All right. After everybody's read the whole book, then the first exchange you want to have after that, you want it to be about the sheer love of the book. And so I want you to ask some open-ended question like, so what did you think about that story? And in particular, with level C books, I'm wanting the child to have an opinion, to learn that they have an opinion. And so I'm wanting them to tell me, what did you think about the pictures or the illustrations and the animals? Okay. I might ask them also, because this is very important at level C, that they learn some academic language about stories. And so I might say, what was the problem in this story? Well, the problem was that ball, and it kept going everywhere, right? Different animals took it and did things with it. In the end, they lost the ball, right? Okay. So after the discussion, then the teacher will have one or two quick teaching points. Now, the teaching point might be based on something that the teacher saw happen during the story, something that the children did. Like she might notice that someone corrected a mistake they made, and she wants to celebrate it. And that way she might say, okay, I noticed that Johnny missed this word, but then he fixed it right away. And that's something I want you to do too. He went back and read it again and he fixed his mistake. Okay. Most teaching points are somehow related to these 12 strategic actions, whether it's searching for information, monitoring and self-correcting, thinking about solving words or fluency, or adjusting your rate, slowing down or speeding up, or summarizing, or anything related to comprehension. Another example of a teaching point might be the teacher might say, I noticed when you were reading today that some of you stopped on a word that might have been tricky. If you get stuck on a word, don't stop. Take a look at the word. Run your finger under the word. Make the sounds of the letters. Check the pictures. So that would be another example of a teaching point. After that, there's usually 2 or 3 minutes of word work. It's very quick, hands-on practice where the students have a chance to manipulate sounds and letters. It's pre-planned, and it's designed to help the students become fast and flexible with their word-solving strategies. It doesn't take place of anything in the introduction. Don't confuse it with that. And it certainly doesn't take the place of your phonics instruction during the whole group lessons that you might have. A great place to find examples of appropriate word work is in the literacy continuum. At the very end of each guided reading section, there's a place that lots of word work examples are given. It's wonderful. Here's some example of the kinds of things you might do. You might have magnetic letters. You might take the words apart, making them and breaking them. You might substitute the beginning or the middle or the ending sounds. You might do something with sight words, take them to fluency. You might use a dry erase board, and you might even use letter boxes or sound boxes, or you might locate words quickly in the text. I want to give you one example really quickly of what it might look like if you were doing some word work on sight words based on this lesson that we just did. So there were 3 sight words that were pretty important, right? So one of them was the letter I. And so I might say, everybody write the letter I right here in the middle of your board, and then write it over here, write it over here, write it over here, write it over here. And I'm wanting to teach them how to take a word to fluency. So they're writing it in the middle and each corner of the board. And I like for them to say the word and spell it out loud. So I. This is a real easy one, right? Okay. The next word we'll do is see. So can you write see for me? S-E-E. Look at it carefully. See. Now write it over here. And when you write it, say the letters out loud. C, and then S-E-E, C, S-E-E-C, S-E-E-C. A little bit messy. So this is the word see, right? I see the dog. So that teaches kids how to practice words. The last one we have time for is the, T-H-E-D, 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 T-H-E-D. All right, so that's very fast word work. It's pre-planned and it's tailored to the level of the guided reading book that the children are working in. Step 8 is writing or drawing. It's optional. And it's not something you would want to do every time, because kids will get tired of that if they think that they'll have to write or draw about every book. But it is very valuable. So because it helps support comprehension. It would not be done actually during the guided reading lesson itself, but it's done afterwards, something that they might do independently when they go back to their seats. And then after that, you're pretty much done. You reflect on the lesson and you plan the next one. The next day, the next time you meet with the group, you should take an informal running record on one child in the group, and that will give you a good idea of if the book was independent, instructional, or frustrational. And the goal for me is that I take a running record every week or at least every 2 weeks on each child, especially in beginning readers when they're just learning to read. The book will go home that night with everybody in the group. And then when it comes back the next day, then it gets placed into the browsing box. All right. So that's pretty much it. I've walked you through what a guided reading lesson looks like, sounds like, feels like. I hope that you enjoyed this and that it was helpful. Last year, to reach out to more people and help people beyond the school day, I started this YouTube channel and I created a group on Facebook called Daily Experiences, Growing Literacy in Leaders. I have a group that's a private group where I post some things that I might follow up on from being in the schools. And then I also have a page that's daily experiences. If you're not already a member of that, I'd love for you to do that. Here's my email address in case you're interested in the lesson plan form, or if you have questions that you would like more clarification on, feel free to email me. And I'm proud to be a consultant through the Pioneer RESA in North Georgia. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel, and that will give you a chance to get notifications of any other videos that I upload. So I hope to make other guided reading videos on other levels. You'll keep checking back to this channel. I'll share those here. So thanks, and I hope you have a great evening. Bye-bye. Happy reading.